Well, friends, welcome back to the Colonel's Weekly Update to stories the regime media hates for you to hear. I think it's time we have a real talk about war tonight, folks. Here are some Combat Day 1 observations from the Russian invasion of Ukraine from Patrick Fox on Twitter, at RealCynicalFox, a USAF veteran and foreign policy military analyst who's written extensively about Russia and its aims in the Ukraine. But before we get to what he says about the first day of combat, the map that we're showing here shows currently, as of Friday afternoon, the positions of Russian forces along what we believe is their forward line of advance, which isn't really very far into the country, considering that most experts would tell you that the Russians probably thought they were going to have the capital taken care of within a couple of days and killed or captured the senior leadership to decapitate the regime. So what's going on? Well, here's what Mr. Fox has to tell us. The Russians broke with their own doctrine of relying on heavy, concentrated support fires. Their failure to prepare the operational area with adequate prep fires to break up and destroy Ukrainian defenses was a critical hindrance. The Russians allowed themselves to dilute their own strength by advancing and dividing their forces and their fires along four axes of advance. None were capable of achieving their objectives as a result. Insufficiently supported troops failed to achieve necessary tactical breakthroughs with strategic implications for the battle space. And the airborne air assault forces just cannot operate well against even a semi-intact air defense network or in contested airspace. They also, their air assault insertions against superior local forces are an expensive waste of highly trained manpower, like the commando actions a la Otto Skorzeny in the deception operation of Germans in American uniforms in World War II. And we've seen Russians in Ukrainian uniforms recently in this fight in Kyiv, and that did not achieve much success. The commando infiltration of Kyiv was a major success prior to the operations, though, and a massive Ukrainian security failure. Russian morale is much lower than expected. Some units appear to have anticipated being met with grateful Ukrainian crowds instead of stiff, armed opposition. The leadership at the platoon, company, and battalion level is highly questionable in some units based on the behaviors. Russian troops seem to be green overall, noticeable reluctance to dismount armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles and provide infantry screen for the armor when in contact. This is resulting in heavy casualties versus man-portable anti-tank weapons. The overall battle plan's basic assumptions on opposition levels and Russian capability are fundamentally flawed. Their command and control is rigid and inflexible, not unusual. The Ukrainians delayed mobilization for way too long, and their decision not to hold on the Dnieper politically might have been more viable than abandoning East Ukraine, but possibly a critical strategic failure militarily. These insights explain why we're seeing Putin agree to negotiate with caveats. The Russians are likely not meeting many of their tactical objectives and certainly haven't achieved the strategic goal of taking the country with minimal opposition, which is difficult for some to believe considering they had all the U.S. intelligence, according to this report from the New York Times, quote, over 3 months, senior Biden administration officials held half a dozen urgent meetings with top Chinese officials in which the Americans presented intelligence showing Russia's troop buildup around Ukraine and beseeched the Chinese to tell Russia not to invade. According to U.S. officials, each time the Chinese officials, including the foreign minister and the ambassador to the United States, rebuffed the Americans, saying they did not think an invasion was in the works. After one diplomatic exchange in December, U.S. officials got intelligence showing Beijing had shared the information with Moscow, telling the Russians that the United States was trying to sow discord and that China would not try to impede Russian plans and actions, the officials said, close quote. Well, what's the lesson here? China and Russia are in an alliance. And they are working together on the Ukraine invasion. You watch. Taiwan is next. The Biden administration needs to stop being stupid.